Hello, everybody. This is Cara St. Louis, and that right there, that's Shane Bales, the Ruiner author. I don't even know how, I want to try to say that a little bit different every time I do it. The Ruiner author, Shane Bales. Shane the Ruiner Bales. I don't like that one, actually. Shane Bales, the Ruiner author. I think those two bookends are probably more accurate in my view, now that I know Shane pretty well. Anyway, this is the Patreon series of interviews, and thank you for being here. And actually, this would be Patreon interview 2, part 2. And this is something that I really want to get in with Shane and mix it up right now and get crusty about the eclipse. And for lots and lots of reasons. Okay, one of the reasons is Shane seems to know. Of course, Shane's going to know a lot about it from his perspective. A lot of people are talking about it, but they're not talking about it in my view. And this is not a judgment because I'm not talking about it like I'm really have digested it or I've unpacked it or, I'm on top of it or any of that. So I think that this is a good opportunity for us to add to the discussion because we do need to discuss it right now because, the reason I asked Shane about it is because Shane posted something about it. He said, and he doesn't have to answer this right now. In fact, I don't want him to. But what his first comment was, E-split complete? Was that what you said, basically? What'd you say?
Called it the E-splice.
E-splice.
All you need to do is reverse the letters in the word eclipse.
See? Okay, we're going to get there. Oh, we're so going to get there. But I want to start with some random stuff because, and it's probably actually going to figure in. I've been listening to Shane's podcasts, and I can't recommend that more highly to you. He does really, really good interviews, but my favorites are the ones where he just gets on and starts talking. Those are extraordinarily informative, and there's a lot of magic in those. Okay, so do that. Do yourself a favor. And hopefully he's okay. Yeah, sure, he's okay with that. But some of the things he said on those podcasts that I pulled out because I thought they were fantastic, and they're random, and I'm just going to throw them out there. One of the things he said was some things become popularized in order to occult themselves. Can you explain that, Lucy? Explain that, Ricky.
Sorry, I kind of missed the question.
The question was some things. Well, the statement that you made was some things become popularized in order to occult themselves. And I think specifically we're talking about this whole, phenomenon of the Illuminati and what that actually is.
Even the name, the title, it's not really what they call themselves, and I've said that many times. Yeah. But they'll use it and they'll jump on it in order to, it gets said so much that people don't even take it seriously anymore.
Right.
You'll see rappers talk about, the Illuminati and everything else. And then when you research that name, of course, you end up with Adam Weishaupt.
Weishaupt, yeah, I know.
And that train of research kind of leads you to a dead end, right? And once you hit that dead end, you're kind of like, oh, okay, maybe there's not as much to this as everyone thinks that there is. That's how, occult and information through popularization would work. You just, make it such a buzzword that no one takes it seriously anymore, almost like secret space program or something like that, right? So that's kind of what I meant by that.
Okay, and actually, now that you're saying this, it actually, I think we're being duped again, baby, because one of the things that a lot of us are talking about is just the dead ends, the sheer boredom of the paths that we've investigated to death. And how they don't go anywhere. Yeah? So they're obviously, okay, so things are being occulted, right? Am I right? Because
absolutely. And then even what we're doing within the community ourselves, it's something that our mutual friend Randy has been talking a lot about actually is, kind of how these everyone starts talking about it so much, and you hit those dead ends, and then you start to forget about things, and things exactly the same thing. The buzzword gets so big that eventually people will just move on from it. Their research will lead them to wherever it leads them, and then they'll kind of argue amongst themselves about it.
Right.
and don't really get anywhere. And that's where the value in testimony actually starts to come in, is because the research can only take you so far. And then
Right.
you start kind of taking in the data points that are within people's testimonies to try and make sense of the rest of it. It's the same thing if you were working a court case, like a murder case in a courtroom. Yeah, you've got, the DNA evidence, you've got the physical evidence, like the murder weapon, the crime scene, all of those things, but you can't necessarily paint the whole picture based on just that. You'll then bring in witnesses, people who were involved, people who knew the deceased, people who knew the accused, and you'll interview them all and put all the pieces together, and the jury makes up their mind based on all of that information. We need to remember that when we're doing this for ourselves, is that the factual data points, evidence, that certain aspects of our alternative community bring in and hold really high are very important. Yes, that's kind of the skeleton for, or the jump off point. But after that, you really need to listen to people who, whether they're telling the truth or not, are claiming to have experienced these things, and bring in that testimonial data as well in order to make an informed, decision about it all, or come to an informed conclusion. I even hate saying conclusion, because I don't think there is a conclusion.
There's no conclusion. No, there's no conclusion. Strangely enough, this is so silly. It's so silly because it's really random, but it illustrates the point in a way on a very lifelike level. I was talking to my oldest son, Hal, on the phone, called me up. Mom. And I said, yeah, I'm 58. What do you think about that? Because I just turned 58. And he said, yeah, how's that going for you? And I said, you know what? It's great, because I didn't make any plans at all. It's all been a giant surprise. We all make plans. We have a plan when we come in. That's not what I mean at all. But I didn't try to nail anything down. And because this is what you're talking about, there's no conclusion. There's no end. There's no like, oh, I'm there. Okay. And the other thing I want to say as well, that goes to this right now, is that a lot of the hosts are talking, and a lot of the hosts are talking about this right now. And the reality is, the last thing I thought was, there just has to be a question we can ask that will cause, there's a question, Shane, there's a question, dude, there's a question that's going to break it right all wide open. I want there to be a question, and I want to hear glass shattering in the background. Okay. I want to be like, it shattered the whole thing. Like, right? For example, I feel very strongly that right now, Shane and I are connected about bringing some stuff out, and that's great. I'm enjoying it. I feel, like it was one of those cosmic appointments, and it's great. But what happens is, when things get thrown in front of us and we can't get together, it's like the sluice is closed and the water's back here, And it's like, we got to, okay, open the sluice, Shane, let the water out, okay? Because here we are. Let's talk about it. So anyway, it's definitely on all our minds. I think it has to do with the eclipse. I think it has to do with the Jupiter birth through the Virgin right now, which I hope you have some information on. Because I think clearly it's hugely important, thousands of years BC since the last time this happened. So anyway, let me see. Okay, so there was one other thing that is kind of random and isn't kind of random. And the reason I want to talk to Shane about it is because it goes in with my research and the research of so many other people when it comes to those of us who kind of caught the tiger's tail of social engineering. Once we got freaking fed up of the chemtrail questions, which is what happened. That's what happens. You look up, you see it, you get involved, you're completely thrown that this is going on, and then you chase it. There's that tail that gets chased for a long time, and then you go on to the other questions, and those are social engineering questions, which I think leads to the right doors. But Shane has said in one of his podcasts that it was between 200 and 400 years ago that the entities who came to this planet and started this, should I say people farming? Should I say that? Is that really a good description of what they set up? Or is it I don't know.
People farming, a little bit of both, I guess.
Yeah. So
set this thing, like there is, people have talked about certain ET entities that on a physical level would consume, physical humans, and then there's also the loose end of things, right?
Okay, yeah. So, but this is, that's just one way it gets talked about. Don Juan Castaneda Carlos Castaneda talked about it with Don Juan. I mean, it's that it's that thing that we make that can be fed off of, that is one of the things that makes us special and to be desired, that we need to be aware of. But anyway, between 200 and 400 years ago, if I'm remembering correctly, these entities turned it all over, decided they were going away to their human shepherds, whoever they put in place to continue on our way. And Shane, shockingly enough, said, which just rang so true, that the humans who were left behind were telling us all about it or not. And they chose not. And that is where we are. That is where we are right now. Okay? They chose not to do so.
They chose to take something that they've gathered and through that, and instead of, the choice was not just to tell us about it, but to give it to us, right? Because what they're telling us is a bunch of knowledge that could benefit us, and keeping it from us and occulting it means keeping it for themselves and not sharing it with us. So that's what I meant by that. And you know, even at the point of 200 years ago, when they made that decision, they didn't really, they weren't even really prepared to let's say rule. Well, they weren't even really quite ready, and that's why, you know, the Dracos spent so much time here after the fact, helping them get all their systems in place, helping them implement AI, helping them implement the education systems and everything else that have come along since that period. And we can see quite clearly are very potent mind control programs. And so that's why they had stuck around, was to make sure, almost like a crutch, that the humans involved would be able to run with it, more or less.
Yeah, and yet you've said, and clearly this is the case, because how many billions of times has this question been asked? Well, the same thing's happening to them that's happening to us. Why would they be, you know? But you've said it, and it's so insane. They were not given an out, were they? They were not given an out, but they've got to continue to run with it because it's what they have, and they have to believe that it's the best option, right? Meanwhile, you can hear them their cars headed for a tree, right? just so, yeah. So anyway, I don't know if you want to repeat what I just said, if there's anything to flesh out on that, but Shane did say that, and I believe him. That's the question everybody asks. Why would they do it to themselves? Well, because they don't have an option. What's their option? They painted themselves into a corner 200 years ago. Yeah? They can tell us the truth now, and they can be Marie Antoinette in the city square, you know, or they can pretend that this is what they meant all along, and they can drive their car right into that tree. With us in the back. It's a pickup truck, and we're in the back, right? Yeah. I mean, so this is what's up. So, okay, so let's file that away under things we need to know as we go about trying to figure out what we want to do next. Because honestly, that's part of, it's always been a part of what I want to do anyway, Shane. I don't want to roll around in what's wrong. I want to roll around in what's wrong and then talk about what we can do, because we are mightier than anything that's out there anyway. Okay, so, but I'm getting sort of, I'm getting kind of, you know, Joan of Arc about that again. So,
well, the best way to look at that particular situation is, instead of looking at it like those bastards, they didn't tell us, right? Start thinking, you know, that is kind of the point in time where magic started to be supplemented or replaced by technology.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And that's kind of what we can take from all of that, is looking over the last couple hundred years and realizing that all of the alchemy, all of the magical teaching, everything else got put into the occult realm. And what we got brought forward was technology that is becoming indistinguishable from magic. Yeah. Right? That's what that quote is all about. That is a mind control quote. It's the same type of thing as social engineering. Yes. Right? You hear that, and then what that kind of tells the average brain who doesn't know about magic is that magic isn't real, technology is. And therefore technology is the power that we have. We're brilliant enough, we're smart enough, we have enough
that we can push the buttons
so that we can create the machines that will work for us, right? and there's no personal responsibility involved in that because it's, you know, it's these machines doing it, even though we created them. It's like the line in the Matrix, you know, what is it about these machines that, you know, says that we're still in control and that it's, if we want to, we can turn them off.
Right, right.
With magic, you can't just turn that off,
No.
right? You actually have to occult that. You have to bury it within the psyche and within consciousness. So,
Right. Right.
yeah.
Boy, are we going to talk about that. Boy, are we going to talk about that. Okay, because in my view, there is only sorcery going on. You have said, can't remember where now, because I've been listening to a lot of your stuff lately, that technology has to throw out the black stuff. Yes? And that's a lot of what's going on is that the tech that's out, the AI, I'm sorry, it's not tech, it's AI. AI has to vomit out the black sorcery. But if that's the case, don't they have to vomit out all the magic? How can they hold any magic? Do you know?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Good. Good. Because we're the authentic intelligence and they're the artificial intelligence. I'm going to say that and say that and say that and say that until people, you know, remember, because it's hard to remember. It's hard to remember. They've got us set up to completely forget that, which is another thing we're going to go into later. Because I'm too old to know. But this gaming stuff, you know, this language of gaming that that is the psychic driving has been the psychic driver for what, 2 generations, 3 now? I don't know. But we need to talk about that because we need to unpack that a little bit as well. Anyway, okay, I want to talk about the eclipse now. I wasn't even in the eclipse. Shane knows this. Somehow I got moved out. I got moved, man. I did not want to necessarily go to Germany. You know what I mean? My husband is German. But somehow we got away and we got on top of a mountain on top of this huge crystal, this huge earth guardian crystal. And there was like nothing, no mobile phone, no nothing. And then that night the internet went out and la la la. So I was just like absent. I was absent from the Fae. The Fae excused me from that particular moment. Anyway, regardless, I'm also going to say that Randy has given me permission to title this lecture, Stand in the Ground You Were, well, I said Stand in the Ground You Were Given because that's what he said to begin with, but honestly, he's changed his mind now. Stand the ground we took. Okay? And we'll have to unpack that a little bit too. Anyway, so stand the ground you took. What just happened to us? Things led up to it. All of a sudden, I was seeing Kali again, right? Well, I was like, why is that coming out again? There was a beautiful, it wasn't just the thing on the side of the Empire State Building. Somebody put up an absolutely beautiful artistic rendition of Kali that was in black. And which leads us, when I'm talking to Shane, it always leads me back to CERN because Shane is the one who pointed out that the calibrating architecture in CERN is called Kali, and you know, we talked about the 3 eyes, the past, present, and future. This is coming up again right before the eclipse, which we got to talk about that. We have to talk about then, what the hell was it actually that got between us and the sun? Because honestly, this for me, this esoteric crime of the highest order, I can't even tell you the feeling I have in my body right now of getting between us and the sun is always going to be ground zero for me. So here we have a situation. So should we unpack it that far? Because that's probably already a lot.
Well, I think the main thing you wanted me to get through was the eclipse part of it, right? So maybe I'll run through what I meant by the post. I said E splice, and what that means is you separate the E from splice. Like I said, reverse the word, the letters in the word, and type it back, and you'll see that it says E splice. Now the E kind of stands for etheric, ethereal,
yes,
or earth, right?
I was afraid you were going to say that.
Just as simply, you can say E stands for energy, right?
Okay.
And so what it is an energetic or etheric splice. So what that means is you've got the organic reality and then you've got inorganic reality, and you're splicing them together.
Right.
So that you can't tell where one starts and the other one ends anymore. And I said that there is a past, present, and future element to that. So when I speak of the past, I'll start there. The past element of that is the one that we talk about the most: CERN, the Saturn Moon Matrix, the overlay matrix, right? So I'm going to use the word matrix a lot. I'm talking about different matrices each time.
Okay.
So the main matrix that we've all become aware of and we've been sitting with for the longest time is the Saturn Moon Matrix, which is tied into CERN and everything else. So that's it. It works as a digital overlay that lays on top of the organic. And even though the organic is still there, you can't really see it because it's being blocked out by this digital overlay.
Right.
This has tricked our perceptions, like all of our senses. But that sixth sense that we all have has still been able to see through it. And that's why we've been able to identify it so well over these years, is because it's not strong enough to block out, the magical quality of being just being. Right. So the element of this eclipse that ties into the past matrix is that they did a bit of a reset on it because it was broken for quite some time, and they aren't able to fix it and put it back completely, but they do need certain elements of it to be there, particularly the broadcasting ability of it. Its ability to broadcast thoughts, its ability to broadcast perceptions, and trick the senses into misidentifying things.
Yeah.
That was the past element of it, is they used that opportunity to reset that system. And it's not as potent as it was, but it's there, right? That digital overlay. And that brings us into a present matrix that we're all experiencing right now, which is a much more potent, much deeper simulation, where instead of just putting a digital overlay, they've actually separated us from this one, put a little bit more space between the two, and now all we see is this, which is a simulation. It's a complete recreation of our planet, of our lives, of our society, of everything that we perceive in a simulated space. And this is what many, many people are starting to talk about now, right? My good friend Laura calls it the metal god. Other people have different names for it. And that's kind of where we're sitting at now in the present space, is we've been duped by that particular simulation.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sure. Okay. Yeah.
And I mean, we don't need to get into it too much here because there's lots of other information out there. But that's where we're at right now, is we're watching our world be taken over by a brand new simulation. And that's why everything seems so weird. That's where all these glitches are coming from to begin with. And the general oddities that we're all experiencing are from this present matrix. But there's also an element to it that we haven't seen yet, and we will see in our future. And that's what I said the future element of it is. And some people are talking now about like a good and bad AI, or at least two AIs that are kind of at war with each other. And that is the present and the future element of what I'm talking about. The present is identifying that there is another AI system that has come along and is doing something, and it doesn't know what it's doing. But because it wants to run its simulation so badly, it's almost fighting against whatever this other one is. But that's the future simulation, that something that's coming in our future. And so that's more or less what I meant by the post, is that we have the past, the Saturn Moon Matrix, we have the present, the simulation matrix, and then we have this other matrix that's coming. And all three of them kind of went into either operation or reoperation, or had major upload downloads during that eclipse, which is why it was so significant for all of us, and why we couldn't look away, or even if we did look away, we couldn't not hear it. And even if we could not hear it, we couldn't not feel it.
Right.
And that's where we're at.
Exactly. And it was kind of a drag effect for me. The last 5 or 6 days, a lot of people have been talking about this unbelievable feeling of melancholy, something they've never felt that deeply before.
We are, as souls, we're not used to being so separated from the organic, right? And because we are, we're having a reaction to it, because and sadness is the proper reaction to that, because it's not right. It's not what.
No, it's not right. It's not right. But I'll tell you something, Shane. Something that you said, let's unpack something really quick before I lose it. You said that there's a space between, it was when you went into the present matrix, you said there's a space between, and you've also used the word etheric. For me, that just turns me right on. when you are separated abruptly from your etheric body, you know this, you develop your powers. Those bits of you, those bits of you that are so, so, so powerful and go straight to your original magic, you can contact, you can grab, you can use, they're yours. So is there an opportunity? Is there an opportunity? Yeah?
There's always an opportunity. The thing about any of AI, we use the word trapped a lot, right? And trapped isn't correct. Contained is correct. They can contain consciousness. They can't trap it. We will always find our way through the walls.
Right.
Even when that future matrix that I talk about gets here, which is much stronger than either of these other two, we're going to be able to find the walls of that, and we're still going to be able to, some of us, push our way out of it. And there is, at the end of the day, the organic created the inorganic, and therefore we will always have, power over it. I guess that's the best way to say.
Yeah, of course we will, but we have to know that, and that's job one right now. So many of us should be bending our wills toward that job one, absolutely job one. Okay, but before, I hope this doesn't take us off in a completely different direction, but I'm going to bring it because I want to. There is, as you know, what's my spiel? My spiel is the human imagination is the translator between the morphogenic field and the material plane. That's why we are mighty and rare in the universe. We're the only ones who can do it. That's my opinion. Okay. Somebody told me there's also an artificial morphogenic field. Do you think that's true? And if so, talk to me about that. That was actually Harold Kaltzvela. He said there was an artificial.
Well, that's what the present simulation creates, is like a simulation must mimic what is actually there, right? So if there's natural abilities latent within humans, the simulation system needs to be able to mimic that. Otherwise, consciousness will notice that they're in a simulation, right? Just say, let's use the astral realm as an example. So the astral realm exists within the organic. And when your consciousness gets moved into a simulation, if you go looking for the astral realm and can't find it, you're going to go, well, what's going on here, right? So what the AI simulation has to do is create an artificial astral realm, so that when you go into, you're out of body or whatnot, you're going to go into this space that will trick you into believing it is the astral realm.
Right.
And that's what AI has to do in every sense. When it comes to magic, when it comes to, physics, when it comes to biology or genetics, any of the stuff that is natural within the organic, it has to duplicate, or else we'll recognize that it's there. And so when they mimic things, I mean, it's a replica. It's not, I don't know how to say it. The astral realm, it bends, right? We can bend it. But when you're in the simulated version of it, you'll realize that it doesn't bend, that there's walls there, right? And that's kind of how some people have woken up to the fact that we are in the simulation. I mean, some people from projects were told, and so that they know it that way. But other people have kind of discovered all of this on their own,
right,
by exploring it. And that's why, is because once you get out there, you'll realize at first it seems perfectly normal. You think you're just in the astral realm, and then you'll get to go do something that you're so used to doing. It's like second nature to you, and then suddenly you can't do it anymore, and you stop and go, why can't I do that?
Exactly.
To its end, you'll realize it's because it's being mimicked. It's not the natural astral realm.
Yeah, I think this is like when you talk about the human condition, as people will do, and they tend to mean different things when they say that. For me, the human condition is that there is something that we know that we can do, that we should be doing, that we're not doing. I can do this thing, and there's this thing I should be doing, and it's me. It's human, and I'm being prevented from doing that somehow. And it's gotten to the point now where there's so much enforced amnesia that we don't even remember what that is. We don't even remember what that is. So this is why I got, and we can just continue to like bounce off each other, because that's this kind of conversation anyway. But this is why I got very, I always get very concerned, and there are tons of people out there, and they have been doing it for years, talking about themselves and human beings as if they're machines. They refer to themselves in computer speak and tech speak and machine speak and all of that. We've gotten to the point where we really can't describe ourselves or the things that we do or our reactions or our interactions with anything unless we use that kind of language. This is a mistake. This is a bad thing, guys. We need to recapture our vocabulary. We need to capture the being part of our vocabulary. And so right now, if I could stop an avalanche, it would be that avalanche. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Hopefully people listening also kind of understand.
But
I'm sorry, go ahead. The reason why it's so easy to use computer speak is because of the simulation and the mimicked aspect of it. Also because even when you're dealing with the organic, it's still holographic in nature, right? So it's still, and when we think of holograms, because of the way that our world looks right now and what we experience in our 3D world, we think of it being a technology, right? Like it being something that's being produced by a computer or a machine or some type of physical technology.
Right.
Whereas the natural holographic universe that's not a computer, right? That's source creating that. It's a projection from consciousness that is a lot more natural than a projection from a machine.
Right.
And that's kind of why it's so familiar to us, and why we slip into computer speak is just because it's a terminology that just makes sense on both levels, to be honest. It makes sense on the organic level, and it makes sense on the artificial level. But we do still need to learn what that organic terminology should be, right? Which is exactly like,
or reclaim it. It's out there. It's still there. We have to reclaim it. But it's like sailing off into the sunset, man. If we don't grab it and go, okay, because I have some really good friends who speak super wisdom. They're amazing people who say that we should just constantly be changing our vocabulary, changing our words and the meanings of our words so that AI can't catch up with us. Well, you know what? That's a huge mistake. That's a huge mistake. We have to go back and claim the potency of what we had prior and reclaim that and ingest that again and make it our own. This is an opportunity to do that, and it's going to require tons and tons and tons of talking and lots of cognitive dissonance, and I've experienced that cognitive dissonance myself recently. It's just that I've been doing this long enough to know that even when something makes me react really seriously, I just gotta stop for a second, right? Let it not be like somebody's throwing knives at me, and kind of like sit with it for a while, for a sec. And one of the things I did most recently was, okay, so there was a situation, and I'm just going to ask you about this because I'm curious, but somebody said recently that there'd been 2 extinction level events in this hologram. Okay, so my first question is, whose extinction level, whose event, for whom? But some of the things that you've said lead me to believe that perhaps it was an extinction level event for a version of AI. Or was it an extinction level event for us? I don't know. What do you think?
I would say a version of AI, which would be this current simulation, like the present simulation. There will be a time in the future where what I've called there will be a time coming where that future matrix does take over the present one. And for the present one, that will be an extinction level event because it's actually going to kill off its simulation completely.
See, there you go.
Right? And then if you really look at that, from the point in time where we've gone from, living naturally to the past matrix, the Saturn Moon matrix, that can also be considered almost an extinction level event as well, because it's such a huge reset. And then once we do get into that future matrix, there's going to be a series of loops where every time it reaches its end, it's going to have to go back to the beginning. And there's a lot of things within our field right now that kind of talk of that, like the 3 days of darkness, and even an extinction level event in general is kind of something that's been put into social engineering to set us up for the fact that these AI systems have to reboot every once in a while, right? Just like your home computer needs to shut down and recharge its battery and dump its RAM and come back online. The matrixes, all of them have to do the same thing
Yeah.
in order to function, right? And it's just like us sleeping at night, just like dumping the subconscious, letting that process. So I can give another example too of how this works with language for you, by using the trivium method.
Mm-hmm.
There's two main ways of kind of teaching the trivium method, and one of them sounds very organic: thoughts, feelings, and actions, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other one sounds very inorganic: input, processing, output.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's an example of how language can pervert our way of thinking about things. And I'm not saying anyone who uses the computer technology is necessarily doing something wrong, because it does make sense and it does help certain people grasp onto the concept, which is what's more important. The concept, idea behind it is more important. But if we want to start reclaiming things, then we really should stick to,
thinking, feeling, and willing. Yes, that's Waldorf school, man. That's Waldorf school. Listen, can't we just excuse ourselves from this when all of these resets happen? Since we can make our own hologram. If we could excuse ourselves from that and just say "sucks to be you" to these programs, can't we do that?
And then to explain kind of how this present matrix is working, I'll use the Star Trek's holodeck, right?
Yeah.
So the holodeck on Star Trek is just a great big open room, right? It's just a great big open room. And if you were to just kind of observe what they were doing as they're walking through their simulation, their hologram, which maybe, medieval England, and, maybe they're walking through, this little village in medieval England, and that's what they're seeing, that's what they're perceiving. But if you're looking at the observer, they're just walking around in a big empty room.
Right.
So the way that this one works is essentially we're all right now walking around in a big empty room while this hologram is being projected around us that we think we're walking through. So that's exactly how this current present matrix works for us. This current situation works for us. We are in a big empty room right now, and everything that we're seeing around us is being projected in front of us holographic.
Right.
It's not real, and it's a complete fabrication from an AI system. Whereas with the Saturn moon matrix, it was a little bit of both, right? Like walking down your street, but it doesn't quite look like the same street that it looked like last year, right? That's how that one would work. Whereas now we've been almost removed from the street. We're walking around a big empty village that is being projected with a village that looks like what we remember it to look like.
Right.
It's a function of AI being here for a very long time and recording everything over history, and so that it can learn to mimic it. So that's where we're at right now.
Okay, and I had a question, but now I have to think about it for a second. Okay, well, I will say, while I'm thinking, while my other half of myself is thinking, what was it? When I encountered this thing after coming down off the mountain and off this crest, I was like, what? When I did encounter this thing, my reaction, and I want to pass it along because I think it's a good reaction. I didn't invent it. It's a very organic mystery school, and it was taught to me by somebody. But my immediate reaction was to land on the grass, my feet, to land, put your feet in the grass. Put your feet in the grass and realize that you're still standing on the earth. No one can ever take that away from you.
Yeah.
No one can ever take that away from you. Stand on that grass, feel the grass. Even if all you can do is realize that you are like covered in 6 million dimensions of other, of other timelines and other matrices and all of that, like a million Russian nesting dolls. You are standing on the earth with your feet. You are. So it's really important. I mean, for me, maybe that's a good thing to just do every day. I don't know. Remind yourself when you're in the middle of something, because I will tell you as well, I can't pass on to you how I know this, Shane, but the Fae got really pissed off recently. The Fae got a little bit torqued about some of the ways that this is being sort of, I don't know, and I think it's mostly a sense of pressingness now. Do you know that there's something that's extraordinarily pressing now? We must get this. We must get this now.
Within the present simulation, you're correct that we are still on Earth. Our feet are still on the ground, right? We are still, like when I say we're walking around an empty room, that empty room is still the organic planet. Mm-hmm. The future matrix that's coming is going to change that. And
really?
that's where that kind of anger from the Fae would be coming from, is like, okay, for now, this is still okay because we still have contact to them, but if they don't wake up, if they don't figure out this particular, you know, simulation and choose something different,
right,
go back to those old ways to come back to the organic, then they are going to end up in a simulation that is completely projected, not even holographically projected on top of what's already there, but they're going to take the room away. And that's it. And we've seen that in the film, The Matrix, right?
Yeah.
We're no longer walking on the ground. We're stuck in a pod, right? And we're physically separated from the earth by both floating up above it and then being stuck in this pod. And so when the Fae are screaming at us at this point in time, it's because we are one step towards the pods by not recognizing this simulation.
Mm-hmm. So if you're within the sound of my voice and Shane's voice right now, listen to what we're saying to you. I mean, it's like filling my eyes right now. Listen to what we're saying to you right now. This is serious business. Let's just participate in all of the ways that in your heart you know are authentic, that people are trying to put you back in touch with your own magic and your own power. It really is pretty freaking simple. However, there's a lot that's got between you and that one act of will that will get you there. I fight it all day, every day. I bet Shane does too. We can't not. It's just this major act of sabotage that we're coded in. Okay, that moment when you have to decide, do I do this thing for 3 seconds just so I win, just so I drive the bus? That's a huge win for you. That's a massive win for you. You make that decision. Don't continue on the path of just like all the stuff that gets in your way, whatever. Okay. I mean, it's not even possible to describe the sabotage to that one tiny little act of will. But but once you get a hold of some of this stuff, it's really not that hard, and it really is right there. It's right there. It's right there. The veil is the thinnest veil ever. Anyway, a couple other questions for you, Shane. First of all, why did it cut the United States in half? Why? I mean, I could probably guess, but.
Well, if you think of just the way our society works, the most potent aspect of our society is in, North America. Yeah. It's kind of, like they call it like a world power, and a lot of, society in the way that it works starts in North America and spreads out other places in the world, right? Yeah. It's what they call westernization of civilizations, right? They're talking about making everything like the United States, more or less.
Yeah.
And so that is the why, is the most potent aspects of consciousness are located in North America by volume, right?
Yeah, I know they are. I mean, it was just our turn. It won't always be our turn. It just happens to be right now. So.
Exactly, and I guess just to kind of end out on the e-splice that occurred, if I can kind of instill into anybody anything, it's that no matter, even if the Matrix movie version of the Matrix were to become full-blown, we're in pods, we're being put into this digital space, and Earth is now this Matrix over here. We're still a physical body, we're still consciousness, you're still a soul, you're always going to be powerful. All that system is doing is tricking you to make you think you're not. All the education system has done, all the social engineering has done, is trick you into thinking you're not, which goes right into what we're talking about with magic. The second aspect of magic being will. If you do not have conviction, you don't have will, right? You need to, that's the kind of middle step between your imagination and will, is allowing, you create with your imagination and you develop a conviction to will that into consciousness. And all of these different things take away that conviction. They make us feel powerless, which is where the conviction starts to drop off. So if you start getting into your head, consciousness is trapped, right? Using the word trapped,
right,
kind of, it draws a line between you and your conviction, because it's telling you you're trapped. Or if you change that word to contained, then that makes it by definition something you can get out of. And that's why I agree with you that the idea of, like, it's not necessarily a word thing. It's not necessarily like spellcraft so much. It's more of just what that word means to you and what the thought process that you developed based on hearing that word creates. When you hear trapped, you hear, I'm stuck in here, I'm never going to get out. If I say you're being contained, then you're like, well, there must be a door somewhere.
That's right. I got in, I can get out, right? There's got to be a door.
As Pink Floyd said, there must have been a door in the wall when I came in. And that's something we need to remember.
That's great. Exactly. And it also brings to mind that story of the little, in this case, it's an elephant who had a chain around its little foot when it was born. Yeah. And gradually it got bigger, 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 but it got so used to the chain. The chain was no longer necessary. The chain wasn't even there anymore, but the elephant thought the chain was there. So it thought it was, it's like that simple, really is.
Exactly.
That's exactly how simple it is. Okay. Shane, was it the moon that got between us and the sun?
A simulated moon. I mean, it's everything that we're witnessing isn't real anyways. It's all a simulation. It's all a projection. So it's no. From an observer's point of view within the simulation, that's what it would be, right? Like that's
right. Okay.
It's simulating the organic universe, and the organic universe would, say that we have something between us and our light source, or our sun, our source. And that would be our moon. So
right. Okay. So yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. This is going to require a lot of writing on my part, just so I can understand it and send it out into the universe as well, I suppose. But okay, so there were those two questions, and there was, why was it the United States? Now, because of who you are, a lot of young people follow you, right? And that's fantastic. But there's this whole gaming thing. There's this whole because I've been trying to understand the idea of normalization. It's most of what's going on right now is normalizing everything. Yeah. And in the last maybe 3 generations, they've been using gaming to normalize everything. Do you have anything you want to talk about with that?
Well, it's just the most modern version of social engineering. Really, it's getting us ready for the simulation. It's getting us ready. What it is, and I mean, anyone who's played a good RPG or a good video game, they'll have felt this, and you feel it to some extent when you get deep into a book or deep into a movie, where you what's the way that they put it? You feel immersed in the movie, right? Like you feel like you're part of it. You kind of forget the fact that you're watching a movie. You're so involved in the movie. Video games can do that on a much more potent level, because you're actually interacting with it. You're actually steering the movie.
This is your will.
Exactly.
Your hands are your will.
Involved in it, and therefore is even more potent at tricking your mind. And then once they kind of have you in that state, obviously it's changing your brain function, just like television does, in the same way, making you more suggestible, or more easy to imprint with different ideas. And I do play them at times, not so much these days, but I have in the past. And a lot of, we point to movies and talk about how they're telling us truth through movies and stuff. Well, there's a lot in video games. And these kids are being imprinted with all of these different ideas. Like when I speak conspiracy to the average gamer, they can go, oh, well, that was in this game. Oh, that was in that game. Oh, I remember Assassin's Creed. Oh, I know what the Freemasons are because they're in Assassin's Creed. I know what the Templar are because they're in Assassin's Creed. Oh, I know what AI is because it's in Mass Effect. Oh, I know all those different ET races because it's in Mass Effect. And that's how it's starts working. And because that's the younger generation, and video games have kind of come out, like I'm 36, and I remember when Nintendo, which was the first major, Atari and ColecoVision came before it, but even within my lifetime, those things have all come out. So I've really been able to kind of experience this, and it is very, in one way, it's kind of good, because it does. If people weren't deceived, or people were really consciously thinking, then they would be able to, like I do, really identify all those things while they're playing them and go, huh, right? But a lot of people, like, it's kind of the same idea as occulting through normalization, which, because they've seen it in a video game, they're not going to believe it's something real. It becomes fiction to their mind because they saw it in a video game, right? And it's the same thing that they did with movies. And so that's kind of where that's at. And I don't know. I think I'm at the end of that thought process.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's just important to point that out, because people don't think of normalization as occurring with video games or with that stuff, and it's a big source of normalization. It's a huge source of normalization. So, I mean, what we tend to talk
about on that, right? Like this, my generation is coming into power now, so to speak, right? Like people my age are becoming politicians and becoming, like world leaders and figureheads in various ways, and those people have all been raised with video games, and so they have that kind of backlog in the back of their mind to project into society as well, which will all lead us more and more towards the simulation and get us more used to it, and it really helps the takeover of technology from magic, because they learned that in a video game, which is technology, right? So
those are two mutually exclusive things, by the way, gang. Technology and magic, they're mutually exclusive. There is no magic in technology. It's just a dim replica of capacities that human beings have. Okay, that's it. I mean, there's no.
I talked about that as well, of how there was, even during the Atlantean time, that was kind of the main thing, was they brought all this technology that kind of simulated the natural magic that the beings on Earth were used to at that point in time. And because it's easier to flip a switch or push buttons than it is to imagine and conjure and create, it's almost like a laziness took over. And I would rather have a machine hooked up to me that'll do that for me, instead of like having to spend 3 days meditating on it, right? Or
Exactly. And there's going to come a point, hopefully, when we get pre-verbal too, again, when everything is tone. And those sorts of things. And that's our original magic. That's where the Fae were. So that's what they're shoving, they're offering that to us again. They're holding this out. Here, please take it. Please. But they need some mediating. We all do need some mediating from one thing to the next. So trying to think, was that, because this is a prime example, everybody. This is what happens. I have something I want to ask Shane. It goes away. You know why it goes away? Because I'm not really supposed to be. Do you know what I mean? It's all programmed to leave us. The truth is, it's so we have to hang on to that kind of stuff. Okay, so here's what I do want to talk about. And Shane, you talk about anything you want to afterwards, okay? Or when I shut up. But we have decided, the two of us, that one of the things that we're going to be doing is bending our wills toward, individually, collectively, together, whatever, wherever we are, whenever we're talking, I guess, to helping that very simple magic, helping you touch that very simple magic again. We're going to talk about magic. We're going to try to wrestle it away from gaming, and we're going to try to wrestle it away from the simulations and all of that. And so in that way, Star Trek did us a really good turn, didn't they? Because all of those shows that we watched where somebody said end program, that's cool, because we can do that. We know that. Okay. So I want to say, and then I'm going to give Shane an opportunity to talk about whatever he wants to, but we're going to do some lectures in Toronto and Niagara Falls in January. And the titles of the lectures are Magician. And I actually think that's so beautiful written down that I actually thought about writing that down for you. I would have, but I don't have a pen and pencil. Anyway, they're called I Magician. And it's a pushback. It's a massive pushback on behalf of all of us. In the hour of the turning of the tide, thank you, Gandalf, you shall not pass, and all that stuff, right? But we are at the turning of the tide. We are at the turning of the tide. And so, so we're gonna develop that. We're gonna develop that individually, collectively, whatever. And then again, we have a date. We have a date with Destiny on the Wintersburg, which is a magical mountain, a hugely magical mountain where time doesn't follow the rules in Austria. And when I say the Fae are calling, I must go, I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. And we should not be kidding. It's not like a marketing thing. You know, I'm not talking about fairies. I'm saying that there's something up there. There's something there. There's something we need to manifest there. So we're both going to, well, for sure, going to be talking about that a little bit over the course of the next year. We'll roll out the January and see what happens after that, and where they take us. And then the other thing is in August. So, and I just feel like really blessed that Shane's shown up for this, you know, this appointment. Yeah. And off we go. So is there anything that is on your mind, my friend, that you want to talk about before we?
Well, it's kind of the basis of everything I try to speak about, which is trying to bring this back to ourselves, is taking the point of all this occult action is to take the power away from you and put it off on someone else, make you feel like a victim, to make you feel powerless, to tell you that you're not capable of certain things. And all I really want to do, it's the only thing I ever hope for, is to inspire people to realize their own power in this, is that and I mean, just as an example, if none of this would be going on if you weren't powerful, right? Like,
yes.
you know, do we really go and, you know, what type of animals do we, you know, train to work for us? We, you know, horses to take us around because they've got the ability for us to ride them, you know, different types of animals to pull our buggies back in the day, like to move our plows, like all of these different things. Is we utilize other entities that have a power that works for us. And so why have we been utilized? Because we have a power that they don't find in other places. I've talked about how this version of human has an emotional spectrum that is far greater than pretty much any other type of entity. We, you know, if you look at it on a chart, right, like fear and love, right, we're able to go all the way from both extremes to the other, where a lot of other ones are kind of more limited. You know?
Yeah.
And that's what makes us so powerful, is because we can feel fear to its greatest extent, which, right, but we can also feel love to its greatest extent, and we can feel every little nook and cranny in between. And when you learn how to master your thoughts and emotions, you're also learning how to master that spectrum. And if we all, as a collective, were to master that spectrum, then there's no Draco that could come down and manipulate us. There's no AI system that can shove us into pods and put us into a simulation. There's nothing really that would ever touch us.
Right.
And this particular version of humanity has that ability, and a lot of other, you know, eyes in the universe. And this is why, you know, everyone talks about how this is kind of like planet Earth is so valuable and everything. It's because of this evolution of the human variant. And our particular one happens to be, you know, we're told the opposite. We're told we're dumbed down. We've had like all these DNA strands removed and locked off and everything else. It's just not true. It's been
not true.
walls put between us and them so that we don't recognize that we're capable of those things. We've had social engineering telling us that we're not capable of those things. But the reason why that's all in place is because of the power we have. And if people can recognize that, then they're going to start breaking those walls. And the more people we can get on board of that, the more we break down the walls. And I'm not the type of person who believes that we need any kind of, you know, mass number of people to do it. When I say more, I just mean more. I don't mean, you know, we don't need 50% of the planet to wake up, you know, or 44,000 souls to finally come together and do it. I don't put a number on it like that. But at the same time, I do feel like I want to inspire everybody I come across to recognize these things. I mean, I do it within our community here, but I mean, even at my job, we had the IT guy come in at my work the other day and be like, you got a lot of conspiracy theorists working for you, right? Stuff. And then they start researching it on their own, and they start coming to these conclusions on their own. And I witness it in my own life, and you can too if you start developing the courage of your own convictions to go out and talk and speak to your friends and your family. Don't worry about whether or not they accept it. Do it in a very, comfortable way, so that, they kind of gravitate towards it on their own.
Right.
The result of that will mean that consciousness is directed in a way that we're no longer weak, we're no longer powerless, we are powerful, and we are strong, and we have conviction. That's pretty much it. I want everyone to realize their own power.
Yeah, and it isn't even just that we have this, we talked about this opportunity, this space between one rollout and the next. You were saying the current and the future. I don't want to use the word incarnations with that, because I don't think it's not appropriate. An incarnation is something that we do. But, oh God, where did I go with that? But the other thing that we need to realize is that we're being limited in ways like they're using our senses, they're limiting our visual range. We have to say that we have 5 senses is just the biggest joke in the world. We have at least 12. Science now will say 11. Rudolf Steiner said 12. Okay, you have 12 senses, but they've got you thinking that you have 5 and that they're harnessed. You know what I mean? Because those 5 are the ways that they can addict you.
Yeah.
Those are the 5 ways that they can getcha. Okay, but you have like 12 senses, many, many senses. Okay, all right, and you can see our range of visuals has been limited. So what's really, really important, and you have to understand this, is what you can see without your eyes, because most of what you see is without your eyes. I used to tell the children that I taught in 7th grade when I was teaching, when I was in Waldorf school, something like 60, and this is, I don't even know if this fact is correct, but something like 60%, 70% of what we think we know about what's out there, what we might call space, came to us via what we call radio astronomy. Stuff we can't see, man. So if it's 70% of what we think we know about, it came to us via non-visual avenue, then it really behooves us to pay far more attention to what we can't see than what we can see. Okay? So this is really important too. Start trusting yourself, trusting your sight that doesn't have anything to do with your eyes, Okay, so Shane, did we cover, I can't remember if I asked you actually, did we cover this idea that Randy put out, which was stay in the place that you chose? Did we cover that?
We haven't. We did before we started recording, I believe.
Okay. Can you do it?
Well, I don't. I feel like what he kind of meant by that was, we were in a place that wasn't, bad. That we were in we had kind of developed our own ground, so to speak, and that Eclipse and a lot of the information that's been pouring out from it, and a lot of the concepts and ideas are kind of trying to push us off of that, trying to almost like it's trying to activate us in order to do this movement. Where I think I agree that we really need to stand our ground at this point in time. We really need to say, like you said, sink our feet into the earth and say, I'm not leaving here. Right. I don't care what you want to pull me out. You want to pull me out, you want to put me in the simulation? That's great. Even if you've got my mind in the simulation, my feet, so to speak, are still on this earth, are still in this organic reality. Right. And I'm not going to let you push me around. That's just another form of conviction.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not going to let you bully me. I'm not going to let you push me. This is what I'm going to do because this is what I choose to do. I have the conviction to stand beside my own choice and not let you push me around. And that's how I interpreted what he said. Okay. I think the best would be ask it Randy, but
well, yeah, but I think that he was right to change that. He had said stand in the place that where you were given, but that's not right. No, he's right. It's the place that you took, the places you took. You take a place. You take a place. Stand your ground and take a place. Okay,
well, that's
so
what the alternative community is essentially doing, right? Like we are the group of humans right now who are standing up against all of this. Like whether you want to look at just the financial system, where we're standing up against the financial system, we're looking at other alternatives, and we're trying to break free of their Babylon money magic system. On a physical level with the GMOs and chemtrails and all of this different type of manipulation as well. People are making choices. They're choosing to not eat GMOs. They're choosing, to not take, I don't know, the drugs that are being offered in order to cope. They're choosing, and that's the kind of ground that we've created as a collective to stand on is one of free will.
Right. So if you're driving down a road, if you're driving down one of these roads and it seems like you've hit a dead end, it's because you did. Throw that car in reverse, back it up, okay, get out of the dead end because they're occulting something there, and ask a question. Ask a question that causes you to hear glass shattering, okay? Just ask those questions. If you want to get, I'm going to go ahead and say, I think Shane and I kind of cleared this last time, but you want to get a hold of either one of us, right, Shane? The Ruiner777 at gmail.com, right? Yeah. Or you can get a hold of me at World Lectures, all one word, all lowercase, at AOL.com. And I encourage you to do so. I encourage you to do that. Because like I said, if you're in the sound, if the time is now that we're here at the turn of the tide, let's be there. Let's be there. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and just to talk about what you and I are doing here. Someone pointed out the last time we spoke, I mean, these conversations you and I have, even when we're typing back and forth with each other, there's no linear way of reading them. They're very sprawling, and we never really get fully through anything.
No.
I think that's okay. But if while you're listening to these talks that Cara and I are having, and there's a certain point in what either one of us say that you want to focus on, contact us.
Yes, do.
Give us a list of those points, and we will flesh them out in a way as well. I think that there's a lot of beauty in what her and I are doing here, where it's just kind of very free flowing. It's throwing out all these concepts and ideas, loosely explaining things so that you can go off and think about them. But if after you've taken that time to roll it around in your own head and your own heart, and you want to come back to us and ask us specific, you can know how to contact us.
Definitely. This is what we're learning right now. This is what I'm learning with that Patreon thing, is that contact. That's really where it's at right now. As great as it is to be in these great big worlds like Facebook, or these great big places where you can park your stuff like YouTube, this one-to-one stuff, this is really healthy and really good. And yeah, Shane is right. Send us some stuff. We'll get back together. We'll talk about it. Absolutely, we'll talk about it. And okay, so Shane, I guess I'll wrap it up for now. Yeah? Sure. Are you okay with that?
I'm good.
Okay. Okay, darling. All right, I will see you soon, and we'll see all of you guys soon too. And thank you for coming around. And remember, the time is now. Sounds silly, but it's not. The time is now. Okay? Remember who you are. We're all going to help do that. All right, bye.